The morning sun filled the classroom with golden light as students chatted about their weekend plans. Hannah Kim sat in her usual spot at the back corner, her chemistry textbook open on the desk. To everyone around her, she looked like any other 17-year-old girl trying to stay awake during first period. But Hannah was not reading about chemical reactions. Her mind was replaying every moment from the night before. The memory of sharp claws slicing through the air inches from her face made her jaw tighten. The substitute teacher had seemed so normal during the day. Mr. Kim had helped students with math problems and even brought cookies for the class. Nobody knew that after sunset, he had transformed into something else entirely. His human skin had peeled away like old paint, revealing the gray-scaled hide of a Vrex infiltrator underneath. His kind smile had split open to show rows of needle-sharp teeth designed to tear through human flesh. Hannah shifted in her seat and felt the burning pain in her left arm. The creature's claw had found its mark during their fight in the empty school hallway. She had been faster, but the Vrex had been desperate. Now 3 long scratches ran from her elbow to her wrist, hidden beneath the long sleeves of her school uniform. She reached for her pencil to take notes and couldn't stop the small wince that crossed her face. The movement pulled at the bandages she had wrapped around the wounds at 3 in the morning. "Are you okay?" Hannah looked up to see Tai-Ho Park looking at her from 2 seats away. His dark eyes held concern that made her stomach twist with guilt. Tai-Ho had been watching her for weeks now. She could feel his attention like warm sunlight on her back during classes. "I'm fine," she whispered back, forcing a small smile. "Just tired." Tai-Ho nodded, but his expression remained worried. He had noticed too many small things about her lately. The way she sometimes disappeared during lunch break. How she always seemed to know when something was wrong before anyone else did. The bruises that appeared on her arms and legs that she blamed on being clumsy. If only he knew the truth. If only any of them knew that the quiet girl who never spoke up in class had killed 12 alien infiltrators in the past 6 months. That her small hands had learned to use weapons most soldiers never touched. That she slept 3 hours a night because she spent her evenings hunting monsters that wore human faces. The teacher droned on about molecular structures while Hannah's classmates passed notes and stared out the window. Some girls giggled about boys they liked. Others complained about homework. Normal teenage problems that felt like they belonged to a different world. A soft buzzing in her ear made Hannah straighten up. The tiny device looked like a hearing aid, but it was actually advanced alien technology. Dr. Su Jin Yang's voice came through so quietly that only Hannah could hear it. "Status report." The woman's professional tone cut through the classroom noise. Hannah pretended to cough and covered her mouth. "Target eliminated. Minor injuries sustained. Good work. We have a problem, though. 3 more Vrex signatures detected in the city. They're moving in coordinated patterns." The blood in Hannah's veins turned cold. Coordinated patterns meant the aliens were working together. It meant they were planning something bigger than random attacks on humans. "How coordinated?" she whispered, so softly her lips barely moved. "Pack hunting behavior. Intelligence suggests they're preparing for a larger operation. Meet Dr. Yang after school for full briefing." The line went quiet, and Hannah was alone again with her terrible knowledge. Around her, her classmates continued their normal day. They worried about tests and crushes and weekend plans. None of them knew that something evil was gathering in the shadows of their city. Tai-Ho was still watching her. This time when their eyes met, she saw something different in his expression. Not just concern, but suspicion. He had noticed her whispered conversation. He had seen the way her face had gone pale. Hannah turned back to her textbook and tried to focus on the words. But all she could think about was 3 alien killers somewhere in the city, and the boy who was starting to see through her carefully built disguise. The lunch bell rang through the hallways like a sweet song of freedom. Students poured out of classrooms, their voices mixing together in excited chatter about food and friends. Hannah packed her books slowly, watching everyone else rush toward the cafeteria. "Hannah, wait up," called a cheerful voice behind her. Eun Ji Moon bounced over with her usual bright smile. Her long black hair was tied up with a yellow ribbon that matched her sunny personality. She was the kind of person who made friends easily and never seemed to worry about anything serious. "I have the best idea," Yoonji said, grabbing Hannah's arm with both hands. "Sleep over at my house tonight. We can watch movies and do face masks and stay up all night talking. It will be so much fun." Hannah felt her chest tighten. Tonight was supposed to be patrol night. Dr. Soo-jin had scheduled her to sweep the industrial district, where the Vrek signatures were strongest. 3 alien killers were somewhere in the city, and she was the only one who could track them down. "I don't know," Hannah said carefully. "I have a lot of homework." "Come on," Yoonji pleaded, making puppy dog eyes. "You never hang out anymore. My mom is making her famous fried chicken, and we can watch that new romance movie everyone is talking about. Please say yes." Looking at her best friend's hopeful face, Hannah felt the familiar weight of her double life pressing down on her shoulders. Yoonji had been her friend since elementary school. She deserved better than constant excuses and canceled plans. "Okay," Hannah heard herself say. "I'll come over after dinner." Yoonji squealed with joy and hugged her tight. This is going to be the best night ever. As her friend skipped away toward the cafeteria, Hannah pulled out her phone. She would have to slip out after Yoonji fell asleep. It would be risky, but she could make it work. She had gotten good at moving through the dark without making noise. Meanwhile, across the city in Hannah's small apartment, her younger brother Kyung-soo was looking for his phone charger. He was sure he had left it in Hannah's room yesterday when they watched TV together. Kyung-soo pushed open his sister's door and looked around the neat space. Everything was organized and clean like always. Her desk had school books stacked in perfect piles. Her bed was made with military precision. He checked under the bed and found nothing but dust. Then he opened her desk drawer and saw something strange. Beneath her normal school supplies was a device that looked almost like a phone case, but when he picked it up, it was much heavier than it should be. The thing hummed softly in his hands. Tiny blue lights flickered along its edges like it was alive. The surface felt warm and seemed to vibrate with hidden energy. This was definitely not something his quiet sister should own. "What are you doing in here?" Kyung-soo jumped and spun around. Hannah stood in the doorway with her school bag over her shoulder. Her face was calm, but her eyes looked dangerous in a way that made him step backward. "I was just looking for my charger," he said quickly, still holding the strange device. "What is this thing?" Hannah moved into the room with smooth steps that reminded him of a cat stalking prey. She held out her hand and waited for him to give back the device. "It's for a science project," she said in a voice that was too casual. "We're studying electromagnetic fields. It measures energy patterns in the air." Kyung-soo wanted to ask more questions, but something in his sister's expression warned him to stay quiet. He handed over the device and watched her slip it into her school bag like it was perfectly normal. "Stay out of my room," Hannah said softly, "and don't touch my things." After she left, Kyung-soo sat on her bed and stared at the spot where the device had been. His sister had always been strange, but this was different. The way she had moved, the look in her eyes, the humming machine that felt alien in his hands. For the first time, he wondered if the quiet girl he lived with was hiding secrets that might be bigger and more dangerous than he could imagine. The smell of fried chicken filled Eunji's cozy bedroom as the two girls settled down for their sleepover. Pink fairy lights twinkled along the walls and soft music played from her phone speaker. Yoonji had changed into cute pajamas with cartoon cats printed all over them. "This is so perfect," Yoonji said, painting her nails bright purple. "We should do this every weekend." Hannah smiled and nodded while checking the time on her phone. It was almost 11 at night. She needed to wait for Yoonji to fall asleep before she could slip out for patrol. The alien scanner in her bag had been quiet all evening, which should have made her feel better. Instead, the silence worried her. "Tell me about Tae-ho," Yoonji said with a giggle. "He stares at you all the time in class. I think he likes you." Heat rushed to Hannah's cheeks. "He's just curious about my homework answers." "Sure he is," Yunji teased, waving her wet nails in the air to dry them. "Boys don't look at homework the way he looks at you." At midnight, Yunji finally drifted off to sleep with a romantic movie still playing quietly on her laptop. Hannah waited another 30 minutes to make sure her friend was deep in dreams before she carefully slipped out of the bed. She grabbed her bag and tiptoed toward the bathroom, planning to change into her hunting gear. But as soon as she pulled out the alien scanner, it erupted in frantic beeping that made her heart stop. The screen showed massive energy signatures coming from somewhere very close. Not just one or two aliens, but dozens of them. The readings were so strong they made the device shake in her hands. Hannah looked out the bathroom window toward the old industrial area behind Yunji's house. An abandoned factory sat there like a dark shadow against the night sky. She had walked past it hundreds of times during their childhood games. Now red lights flickered in its broken windows. Her hands trembled as she called Dr. Sujin on the secure channel. "I need immediate backup," she whispered into her earpiece. "Multiple VREX signatures detected. They're operating a facility right next to civilian homes." Static filled the line for several long seconds. When Dr. Sujin's voice came back, it carried terrible news. "Hannah, we have a problem. Yuna Shin went missing during her patrol 3 hours ago. Her tracker went dead in the warehouse district. We think the VREX are adapting to our hunting methods faster than we expected." Yuna Shin was one of the best student hunters in the program. She was 18 years old and had eliminated more aliens than anyone except Hannah herself. If the VREX had captured or killed her, it meant they were learning how to fight back. "I'm requesting immediate military support," Hannah said, still staring at the factory's ominous red glow. "Negative. Adult forces are engaged with another facility across the city. You're on your own for at least 2 hours." 2 hours felt like forever when innocent people might be in danger. Hannah thought about Yunji sleeping peacefully in the next room. She thought about all the families in the neighborhood who had no idea that alien monsters were setting up a breeding ground in their backyard. The scanner's readings spiked even higher. Whatever the VREX were doing in that factory, they were doing it fast. Every minute she waited gave them more time to complete their horrible work. Hannah made a decision that she knew was dangerous but necessary. She changed into her black hunting clothes and checked her weapons. The plasma blade felt solid and familiar in her hand. The energy shield generator hummed to life on her arm. She climbed out the bathroom window and dropped silently into Yunji's backyard. The grass was wet with dew that soaked through her boots as she moved toward the factory like a shadow in the night. Behind her, the house stayed quiet and peaceful. Ahead of her, red lights pulsed with alien malice. Hannah took a deep breath and stepped into the darkness, knowing she might not come back alive. Tai Hopar could not sleep. He had been lying in his bed for hours, staring at the ceiling and thinking about Hannah Kim. Something was very wrong with her, and he could not shake the feeling that she was in serious danger. When his phone buzzed with a message from Yunji about the sleepover, a crazy idea popped into his head. Maybe he could ride his bicycle past Yunji's house and check if everything looked normal, just to ease his worried mind. The night air was cool against his face as he pedaled through the quiet streets. Most houses were dark with their families sleeping safely inside. But when he reached Yunji's neighborhood, he saw something that made him stop his bike and hide behind a parked car. A dark figure was moving across Yunji's backyard with the smooth grace of a trained soldier. The person wore all black clothing and carried what looked like advanced weapons. In the moonlight, he could just make out long hair flowing behind the mysterious figure. It was Hannah. Taiho's mind struggled to process what he was seeing. The quiet girl from his chemistry class was dressed like some kind of special forces operative. She moved toward the old abandoned factory with confident steps that showed she had done this many times before. Fear and curiosity battled in his chest as he followed her at a safe distance. He left his bike hidden in some bushes and crept after her on foot. The factory loomed ahead like a monster made of broken concrete and rusted metal. Red lights flickered in the factory windows, and strange sounds echoed from inside. Sounds that did not belong to any human activity. Low growls and clicking noises that made the hair on his arms stand up. Hannah reached the factory wall and pulled out a device that glowed with blue energy. She pressed it against the metal door, and the lock simply melted away like ice cream in summer heat. Then she slipped inside the building like a ghost. Tai-Ho waited for several minutes before following her through the same door. The inside of the factory was filled with machinery that looked nothing like human technology. Tubes of green liquid bubbled against the walls. Strange symbols glowed on computer screens that hummed with alien power. And then he saw them. Creatures that looked almost human but wrong in every terrible way. Their skin was gray and scaled like reptiles. Their eyes glowed red in the darkness. Sharp claws extended from their fingers, and their mouths held rows of needle teeth. 3 of these monsters surrounded Hannah in the center of the factory floor. She held a weapon that looked like a sword made of pure light. The blade cut through the air with a sound like singing crystal. Hannah fought with incredible skill and speed. She moved like water flowing around rocks, always staying one step ahead of the creature's claws. But there were 3 of them, and only one of her. When the largest monster lunged from her blind spot, Tai-Ho saw that she would not be able to dodge in time. Without thinking, he grabbed a piece of broken concrete and hurled it at the creature's head. The rock struck with a loud crack, and the monster stumbled backward with a roar of pain and surprise. Hannah spun around with her light sword ready to strike. When she saw Tai-Ho standing in the doorway, her face went through shock, anger, and resignation in the space of a single heartbeat. "Run," she shouted, dancing away from another monster's attack. "Get out of here now." But Tai-Ho could not run. Not when he finally understood that his quiet classmate was some kind of hero fighting to protect everyone he cared about. Not when she clearly needed help against these terrible creatures. Instead, he picked up another rock and prepared to throw it at the next monster that tried to hurt his friend. Hannah's light sword sliced through the last Vrex warrior with a sound like thunder. Green blood splattered across the factory floor as the creature collapsed into a twitching heap. The sudden silence felt heavy and dangerous. Tai-Ho stood frozen in the doorway, still holding his piece of concrete. His mind struggled to process everything he had just witnessed. The quiet girl from chemistry class had just killed 3 alien monsters with weapons that looked like they came from science fiction movies. "We need to move," Hannah said, grabbing his arm and pulling him toward a ventilation shaft in the wall. "More will come when they don't report back." They crawled through the narrow metal tunnel while Hannah whispered explanations that sounded impossible. Aliens had been secretly invading Earth for 3 years. The government had discovered that only teenagers could detect them properly. Students like her had been trained as hunters to protect humanity. "This is insane," Tai-Ho breathed as they reached a junction in the tunnel system. "You're 17 years old. Adult brains can't process the Vrex electromagnetic signatures," Hannah explained, checking her scanner. "Something about teenage neural development makes us the only ones who can track them effectively." Her earpiece crackled to life with Dr. Soo-jin's urgent voice. "Hannah, we're detecting massive movement in your area. What's your status?" "I have a civilian with me," Hannah reported quietly. "Tai-Ho Park from my school. He saved my life during the engagement." Static filled the line for several long seconds. When Dr. Soo-jin spoke again, her voice was sharp with concern. "Bring him to extraction point Beta. We need to run compatibility tests immediately." 20 minutes later, they crouched in an alley behind the factory, while Dr. Soo-jin ran a small scanner over Tai-Ho's forehead. The device hummed and beeped as it analyzed his brain patterns. "Remarkable," the scientist murmured, studying the readings. "His neural compatibility is almost as high as Hannah's. With basic training, he could operate our detection equipment." Tai-Ho felt like he was living in a dream as Dr. Soo-jin handed him a device that looked like a modified smartphone. The screen showed heat signatures and energy patterns from inside the factory building. Red dots are Vrex, she explained quickly. Blue dots are human. The yellow signatures indicate breeding equipment. But look at this. She pointed to a cluster of blue dots in the factory's basement level. At least 12 human heat signatures were grouped together in what looked like holding cells. Hostages, Hannah said, her voice filled with cold anger. They're keeping humans alive for something. Dr. Sujin's face went pale as she expanded the scanner's range. It's worse than we thought. These readings match missing person reports from across the city. Students from different schools who disappeared over the past month. Taiho stared at the screen in horror. You mean there are kids from other schools trapped down there? Including Yuna Shin, Hannah said, recognizing one of the stronger signatures. She's alive, but her reading is very weak. The scanner showed that the basement was heavily guarded by at least 8 Vrex warriors. The creatures had set up some kind of research facility where they were studying their human prisoners. We need a full assault team, Dr. Sujin said, reaching for her radio. This is beyond what 2 students can handle. But even as she spoke, new readings appeared on the scanner. More Vrex were moving toward the factory from different directions. The aliens were consolidating their forces, which meant they were preparing for something big. There's no time to wait for backup, Hannah said, checking her weapons. If they're studying humans to understand our detection abilities, they're learning how to counter our advantages. Taiho looked at the blue dots representing trapped students and felt something fierce awaken in his chest. These were people his age who had been stolen from their families and friends. People who were probably terrified and hopeless. Tell me what I need to do, he said to Hannah. Those kids need help, and I'm not leaving them down there. Hannah studied his face for a moment and saw the same determination that had made her volunteer for the Hunter program. Sometimes ordinary people found extraordinary courage when others needed them most. Then we go in together, she said, but you follow my lead and do exactly what I say. The basement of the factory felt like stepping into a nightmare. Strange blue lights cast twisted shadows on the walls, while alien machinery hummed with menacing energy. Hannah moved through the corridors like a deadly ghost, her light sword ready to strike at any moment. Taiho followed close behind, gripping the energy shield device Dr. Sujin had given him. His hand shook slightly, but his eyes stayed focused on the scanner showing the location of trapped humans. They found the first holding cell behind a door made of the same gray metal as Vrex armor. Inside, 5 students from different schools huddled together in terrified silence. Their clothes were torn, and their faces showed the hollow exhaustion of people who had given up hope. Stay quiet, Hannah whispered as she melted the lock with her plasma torch. We're here to get you out. The rescued students stumbled out on unsteady legs. One girl recognized Taiho from a school basketball game and grabbed his arm with desperate relief. But there was no time for explanations. More blue dots on the scanner showed additional prisoners deeper in the basement. They moved through the facility like ghosts, avoiding the red dots that marked Vrex patrol routes. Hannah's training showed in every careful step she took. But when they reached the largest holding area, they found something that made her blood turn cold. Yuna Shin lay unconscious on a metal table surrounded by alien medical equipment. Tubes and wires connected her head to machines that pulsed with sickly green light. Her once strong body looked fragile and broken after days of alien experimentation. They'd been studying her brain patterns, Hannah said, reading the alien symbols on the nearby computer screens, learning how we detect them. Taiho helped carry Yuma while Hannah gathered the last group of prisoners. But as they prepared to escape, alarms began wailing throughout the facility. Red lights flashed, and the sound of heavy footsteps echoed from multiple directions. They know we're here, Hannah said, her calm voice not matching the worry in her eyes. That was when he appeared. The Vrex commander was twice the size of the warriors they had fought upstairs. His scaled hide bore ritual scars that marked him as a veteran of countless battles. When he spoke, his voice carried the harsh accent of an alien who had learned human language specifically to hunt humans. "The famous Hana Kim," he said, blocking their escape route with his massive form. "We have been watching you for months, little hunter, studying your methods, learning your weaknesses." Hana stepped protectively in front of the rescued students. Her light sword hummed to life, casting blue radiance across her determined face. "You know my name," she said coldly. "Good. Remember it when you're dying." The commander laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Your government thinks teenagers are their secret weapon. But we have identified every student hunter in your pathetic resistance. Your families, your friends, your schools." Fear flickered across Hana's expression for the first time since Taiho had known her. Not fear for herself, but for everyone she cared about. "I offer you a bargain," the commander continued. "Single combat. You against me. If you win, these humans go free. If you lose, they become test subjects for our invasion research." "Don't do it," Taiho whispered urgently. "It's a trap." But Hana was already stepping forward. The weight of protecting innocent people had always been her burden to carry alone. She had spent 3 years keeping terrible secrets to shield others from the truth about alien monsters. "I accept," she said simply. The commander smiled with too many teeth. "Excellent. But know this, little hunter. When I kill you, your quiet life ends forever. Everyone will learn what you really are." As the two fighters circled each other in the alien-lit chamber, Taiho realized he was about to watch the most important battle of his life. The quiet girl from chemistry class was preparing to fight a monster to save strangers. And for the first time, he truly understood the incredible burden she had been carrying alone. The battle between Hana and the Vrex commander shook the entire factory. Her light sword clashed against his massive claws, sending sparks flying through the air like deadly fireworks. The commander was stronger, but Hana was faster and smarter. She danced around his attacks with fluid grace, striking at weak points in his armored hide. But the fight was taking everything she had. Sweat poured down her face, and her breathing came in sharp gasps. "You fight well for a child," the commander growled, his red eyes glowing with alien hatred. "But you cannot protect everyone forever." Meanwhile, across the city, Kyung-soo and Yeonji were walking home from a late movie when strange sounds echoed from the direction of the old factory. Explosions and flashing lights turned the night sky an eerie blue color. "What do you think that is?" Yeonji asked, worry creeping into her voice. Before Kyung-soo could answer, creatures began pouring out of the shadows around them. Vrex warriors with glowing red eyes and razor-sharp claws emerged from alleys and abandoned buildings. The alien retaliation force had spread throughout the neighborhood. The monsters moved toward the local high school where hundreds of students had gathered for a late-night graduation party in the gymnasium. Screams filled the air as people realized these were not special effects or costumes. Kyung-soo grabbed Eunji's hand, and they ran toward the school, hoping to warn everyone inside. But they were too late. The Vrex had already surrounded the building and were smashing through windows and doors. That was when Hana arrived. She landed in the school parking lot like an avenging angel, her black hunting outfit torn and bloodied from the factory battle. In her hands she carried weapons that glowed with impossible energy. Her usually quiet face was set in an expression of cold fury that made even brave people step backward. The Vrex warriors turned toward this new threat, recognizing the scent of their fallen commander on her clothes. She had won the single combat, but barely. Now she faced 8 more monsters with a school full of innocent people behind her. "Everyone get inside and lock the doors," she shouted to the students who stood frozen in shock. But some of them recognized her voice. Some of them knew that quiet girl from the back of chemistry class. They watched in amazement as she moved through the parking lot like a force of nature, her light sword cutting down alien killers with deadly precision. Kyung-soo stood at the gymnasium entrance with his mouth hanging open. His sister was not just strange or secretive. She was some kind of superhuman warrior fighting monsters that most people had never seen before. Yeonji clutched his arm with shaking hands. "That's Hana," She whispered in disbelief. That's really Hana. The battle lasted only minutes, but it felt like hours. When the last Vrex warrior fell to Hana's blade, she stood alone in the middle of the parking lot surrounded by alien bodies. Her chest rose and fell with exhausted breathing. Slowly, students began emerging from the school building. They stared at their classmate with a mixture of awe, fear, and confusion. Some pulled out phones to record videos. Others whispered questions that had no easy answers. Hana looked around at all the familiar faces from her normal life. Her careful disguise was completely destroyed. Everyone could see the deadly weapons in her hands and the alien blood on her clothes. I can explain, she said quietly, though she had no idea how to make any of this make sense. Principal Jin stepped forward from the crowd of teachers and students. His face was pale, but his voice was steady. I think we all deserve some answers, he said gently. But first, are you hurt? For the first time in 3 years, Hana felt the weight of her secret life crushing down on her shoulders. She had saved everyone, but she could never go back to being just the quiet girl in class. The truth was finally out, and everything was about to change. 3 days after the school attack, military trucks filled the streets of the city. Commander Wu Jin Lee stood in a war room deep underground, staring at a massive holographic map that showed alien positions throughout the area. The mothership has been hidden beneath the subway tunnels for months, he told the group of student hunters gathered around the table. Every attack, every infiltration, every kidnapping has been coordinated from there. Hana sat quietly among 12 other teenage hunters, including Yuna Shin, who was still recovering from her ordeal. Her secret was no longer secret, but the mission remained the same: protect humanity from extinction. This is our final operation, Commander Lee continued. We hit them with everything we have, or they complete their invasion plan. Intelligence suggests they're preparing to release a biological weapon that will make humans unable to detect them at all. The plan was dangerous but simple. Multiple teams would strike different sections of the underground facility simultaneously. Hana would lead Team Alpha directly to the ship's core, where the Vrexed hive mind controlled all alien operations. Taiho had volunteered for the mission despite having only 3 days of combat training. Dr. Su Jin had equipped him with basic armor and an energy weapon, but everyone knew he was the most vulnerable member of the team. You don't have to do this, Hana told him as they prepared their equipment. This isn't your responsibility. Yes, it is, he said firmly. They threatened my classmates. They hurt my friends, and someone I care about has been fighting them alone for too long. The underground tunnels beneath the city were like a maze of darkness and danger. The student hunters moved through them like shadows, their specialized equipment allowing them to avoid Vrex patrol sensors. When they reached the mothership, Hana was amazed by its size. The alien vessel stretched for kilometers through the tunnel system, its biomechanical walls pulsing with organic light. It looked alive, like some massive creature that had burrowed into the earth to sleep. Team Alpha fought their way through corridors filled with defensive systems and warrior drones. Hana's light sword carved through obstacles, while Taiho provided cover with his energy rifle. The other hunters moved like a well-trained unit despite their young ages. At the ship's center, they found the hive mind. It was not what Hana had expected. Instead of a monster, she faced something that looked like a giant brain made of crystalline structures. Thousands of neural pathways pulsed with alien thoughts that connected every Vrex on Earth. Welcome, little hunter, the hive mind spoke directly into her thoughts. I have been waiting to meet the human who has caused us so much trouble. The psychic assault began immediately. Images flooded Hana's mind, showing her friends and family dying in horrible ways. She saw Kyung-soo being torn apart by Vrex claws. She watched Eun-ji screaming as aliens dragged her into darkness. You cannot save them all, the voice whispered inside her head. Your kind is weak. You fight alone while we are united in purpose. But Hana was not alone anymore. Taiho stood beside her, his mind somehow resistant to the alien influence. Behind them, her fellow hunters provided covering fire against the security systems trying to stop them. You're wrong, Hannah said aloud, raising her light sword toward the pulsing brain. Humans are strongest when we protect each other. The final battle was fought on two levels. Physically, she had to destroy the crystalline core while dodging energy blasts and defensive mechanisms. Mentally, she had to resist visions designed to break her spirit and make her give up. Every person she had ever saved gave her strength. Every friend who had accepted the truth about her double life made her more determined. The quiet girl who had once felt alone now carried the hopes of an entire species. With a final strike of her blade, she shattered the hive mind's core. Across the world, every Vrex suddenly lost coordination and began retreating into space. 6 months after the Vrex invasion ended, Hannah Kim stood at the podium in the United Nations Assembly Hall. Representatives from every country in the world sat before her, waiting to hear from the teenager who had saved humanity. She wore a simple blue dress instead of her black hunting outfit. Her hands no longer carried weapons of alien technology. But when she spoke, her quiet voice carried the same strength that had faced down monsters in the darkness. "My name is Hannah Kim," she began, looking out at the sea of adult faces. "For 3 years, I lived 2 lives. During the day, I was just another student who sat in the back of chemistry class and tried not to be noticed. At night, I hunted creatures that wanted to destroy everything we love." The injury she had received during the final battle had ended her hunting career. Her left arm would never regain full strength after the hive mind's psychic attack had damaged her nervous system. But Dr. Su Jin had offered her something even more important than combat missions. The Student Hunter program worked because adults forgot something crucial about teenagers. Hannah continued, "We are not just children waiting to become adults. We are people with the courage to do what needs to be done, even when we are afraid." In the audience, her family sat in the front row. Kyung-soo looked proud but also sad. He understood now why his sister had always seemed distant and tired. The weight of protecting everyone had kept her from being a normal teenager. Yeonji was there too, along with many of her former classmates. They had struggled at first to accept that their quiet friend was really a legendary warrior. But gradually they realized she was still the same person who had always cared about others more than herself. The Vrex chose Earth because they thought humans were weak and divided. Hannah said, her voice growing stronger. They were wrong. When people we love are threatened, we become something more than what we were before. We become protectors. Taiho sat with the other former hunters in a special section. He had returned to normal life after the invasion ended, but the experience had changed him forever. He studied international relations now, wanting to help coordinate global defenses against future threats. "Some of you will ask if the Vrex might return," Hannah acknowledged. The answer is yes. Other alien species exist in the galaxy, and some of them may not be friendly. But we are ready for them now. We know what ordinary people can accomplish when they work together. After her speech, Hannah walked through the halls of the UN building with Dr. Su Jin. They were partners now in training the next generation of defenders. Not just hunters, but scientists, diplomats, and strategists who would keep Earth safe. "Do you ever miss it?" Dr. Su Jin asked as they looked out at the busy New York streets. "The hunting, I mean." Hannah considered the question carefully. "I miss feeling like I was making a difference every night. But I think teaching others to protect themselves might be more important than doing all the protecting myself." That evening, Hannah returned to her small apartment near the university, where she studied xenobiology. Her textbooks were filled with information about alien species and defensive technologies. But on her desk sat a photo of her old chemistry class, including Taiho and Yeonji smiling at the camera. She had learned that being a hero was not about fighting monsters in secret. It was about caring enough about other people to sacrifice your own comfort for their safety. It was about finding the courage to do what was right even when you were scared. The quiet girl who had once hidden in the back of the classroom now stood at the front, teaching others that anyone could be extraordinary when the world needed them to be.